Okay, I know the whole Raiden punching meme died like a month ago, but I'm not really making this video to try to test if I'll get views, unlike with the Mr. Incredibles one. Instead, I'm making this to see if I'm actually capable of making good content, so I'm actually more concerned about the average view duration. I put in much more effort into this video, so hopefully you guys enjoy it. Anyways, for a small bit of background info on the game, it's a spin-off to the Metal Gear series I've never played, featuring Raiden as a protagonist who I only know from that one Smash Bros. Ripoff that probably none of you, except for one person, will know about. Oh yeah, before I forget, the footage I show will have spoilers, but this isn't really a game that is ruined by spoilers, so keep that in mind when you decide whether or not to click off this video. Anyways, without further ado, this review Anyways, let's start off with the more simpler aspects to this game. The graphics in this game, for a 2013 game, look very good. The textures for all the objects don't particularly stand out, but that's fine. I believe the standout feature here are the moves Raiden and his enemy can do, which look very well animated / motion captured. Of course, the objects you cut, including enemies, look very weird, but honestly that's probably needed to both not make it too violent and to not make your PC explode. One problem I do have is that the game looks very unsaturated, so no objects stand out, but of course, this isn't a huge problem. Also, the cutscenes look fairly fluid for a 2013 game, although the models and textures themselves in the cutscenes don't particularly stand out. One hilarious thing in the cutscenes are those goddamn facial expressions, like come on, what are these?
Bruh, look at this dude. Wait till you see the... No.
Finally, on the performance aspect of things, I was playing at fairly low graphics, but I don't think the FPS ever dropped, so that's nice. Overall, the graphics and performance in this game are surprisingly good for its time, but not much more than that. Oh yeah, this game has a few glitches. One glitch is that if you damage the enemy too much and move away from them, then they'll disappear.
Change the world. My final message. Goodbye.
Another that isn't really a glitch, but is still weird, is how the spine / fuel cell, when you do a Sundowner, appears out of nowhere. But honestly, other than those two, I didn't really notice any other glitches, except for this one too, I guess. By the way, I also stealth killed them all after. Now let's move on to one of the greatest parts of the game, that music. Honestly, all of the music during cutscenes I don't remember at all. But all of the music in the gameplay went so hard. The music between boss fights was great, but of course the main star of the show here are the boss themes. Every single one of them is great, and I can remember all of them for standing out for one specific reason, which I guess I'll show here now. What's great about the music is that it gives much needed characterization for the characters you are fighting, because all of the songs, with the exception of Rules of Nature maybe, give you important details on your enemy that actually let you understand their purpose. Honestly, this may be one of the greatest game soundtracks of all time, I'm not exaggerating. The only problem is that with certain boss fights, most particularly Sundowners and Blade Wolves, by the time the vocals come in, which are easily the best parts of each soundtrack, the fight is almost already over, so you barely get to hear them in the game. Anyways, in conclusion, the music in this game is amazing, and that's not an opinion, but a fact. Also, fun fact, I kept singing, "There will be blood shed" aloud, and now I'm pretty sure my family is scared of me. Finally, let's get into the main aspect of the game, the gameplay. So the gameplay is split up into two aspects, the hack and slash and also the parrying / blocking / Sundowner. The hack and slash comes from how in order to increase your rank, fill the FD bar quicker, and I think kill your enemies faster, you have to do combos. You can gain more skills that help you with combos in the customizer section. With the combos, I have one main problem I hope everyone had, the moves list was too overwhelming. This was so much so that I paid very little attention to combos, that is until I finished the game once. Afterwards, as I worked on this video, I did pay more attention to combos and found out how actually, these combos are hella fun. I feel like this would have been better though if they made it so you unlock moves automatically when you finish each chapter in order to ease you into the combo system. Anyways, there is of course one other factor in gameplay, that parry system. While it is pretty hard to get used to at first, in the end I have zero complaints here, neither do I have any complaints over the blade mode system either. Okay, I do have a complaint over the blade mode system actually. One problem is that on PC, it's kinda pretty hard to control the blade because you have to move it in a circular motion, which is pretty unnatural for a mouse. I bring this up because it's important in Armstrong's and Sundowner's boss fights. Using defensive offense is another really important tool in this game, specifically for dodging the yellow attacks. One problem I do have with that comes with how the camera just kinda goes out of control when you use it, but other than that, it's fine. Another cool feature is the sub-weapons, where you have the default option of kicking and the polearm if you want to do combos. As I was saying, the other weapons you can use include the Sai if you want mobility to into and fairly stun your enemies.
Surprise, motherfucker!
Okay, that's the last interruption, I swear. Anyways, another one of the weapons you can use is the dual scissor thingies if you want to deal unfair damage to your enemies. Alright, now we can address the big elephant in the room, the stun mechanic. Seriously, who came up with this idea? The stun time is so inconsistent. You either get out immediately, or you never get out. Also, it never even explains what it wants you to do. Do you press all of them simultaneously? Do you only need to press one of these? Do you only press one key and move on to the next key quickly? At least on console it's quite clear. Another big hindrance is one I swore not to talk about until Armstrong's fight, because that's what's most prevalent. There's also some kind of minor problems, like how the kick launcher is quite inconsistent, and how sliding and then using blade mode can cheese some enemies. But other than those two major issues, the combat in this game is very fun, especially when you become a parry god like this.
Happy feet! One more combo!
And when you become a combo god like this.
Get him up, let him get up, let him get up, let him get up. Fight back, nigga! Fight back, nigga! Fight back! Fight back!
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention because of how underdeveloped it is, but there's also a stealth mechanic too, I guess. So skipping some of the story stuff, the first interesting thing we see is when Sam comes in and gives us one of the goofiest smiles ever. Speaking of Jetstream, Sam, you cannot tell me that these two people aren't the same person. They literally are. Anyways, after the fighting, we get to the Metal Gear fight, which is the first boss of the game. This fight is the decent first boss, but there are two problems. The first is how the enemy moves its legs too frequently, where the second you get to it, its legs shift to another place almost immediately, making this fight quite tedious if you don't get the Metal Gear to do a direct attack and parry it. The second problem is the same one from before, which is the problem I swore not to talk about until the Armstrong fight. Though something that definitely cannot be argued is how absolutely epic the ending sequence is, and how starts playing. Then after some chasing we get to the second phase, which is a lot better than the first because the two main problems I had with the first fight no longer exist. Also, its ending sequence somehow tops the first in sheer epicness. One last thing is that the highlight of both phases is definitely when you go into blade mode, because it's so cool not only to slash at your enemies, but also to just jump to the height. Then we witness the president die and hilariously ragdoll. After that we get to the first Jetstream Sam fight. The only problem here is that it's unwinnable, but you can technically last forever. On my second playthrough, as you can see, I was easily reflecting all of Sam's attacks, and I even did a bit of damage to him, but despite that, nothing happened until I got damaged. Then Sam uses a goddamn fire sword, and also has the coldest quick draw in any game ever. Also, just as Raiden is about to die, he gets saved by a funny haha reference.
What you waiting, huh?
After some story-related stuff, we then landed a cool fashion on a beach. Then we see Raiden talk of how those people deserved it. I'm sure he'll definitely feel that way soon, We then get to the fight with the Blade Wolf. I think he's a decent boss. He's fairly straightforward and plays basically like a regular enemy would, besides when he calls in reinforcements. Though despite him being straightforward, I got absolutely violated by him on my first playthrough. Anyways, then we kill him in a fashion which should have left him destroyed forever, although I respected my future friend by not cutting him into tiny little bits. And we move on to a fight where I violate the heli with my Sai and take 40% of his HP in one hit.
Now that's a lot of damage!
Then we move on to a point where Raiden becomes the ultimate Sigma male, dodging women left and right.
What's happening? Your heart rate is spiked.
Yeah, I just dodged a bullet.
Then we get to the Mistral boss fight. That is after she makes some suggestive sounds. In my opinion, she's probably the second weakest boss fight, but she's still good. At least she definitely has some creative attacks. I also like how parrying her attacks actually does something, making her be without her pole on, that is. Of course, the main gimmick of the fight which people either like or hate are those bots. And I've always personally found them really annoying because there's no point focusing on them when they'll respawn instantly without any delay. Although, the way she dies is definitely quite cool. Then we get a pretty funny cutscene where two strangers are scarred for life right here.
Adios, amigos.
Then after some time in the sewers we meet George, who weirdly enough is one of the better characters in the game as he's actually quite funny. Oh yeah, here I got absolutely violated by those three raptor thingies because of how tanky they were and also how they had this BS purple stun thing. Although now I can easily take them on. By the way, the video quality is about to dive down immensely, but don't worry, it doesn't last too long. Then I got even violated more by those three gorilla thingies because my puny little brain couldn't grasp the idea that I had to parry more than once to destroy an enemy. Oh yeah, we also play as that annoying bot thing and it's actually pretty hilarious. Anyways, then we could do the grad fight. The boss fight is decent, but nothing really stands out as great, other than all those exploding objects in the area looking cool. Another problem is the grad sometimes just kind of moves around for too long, not letting you hit them, and it's kind of annoying to wait for them. Anyways, then we see some trapped children. No, they captured George! Thankfully, Raiden saves them, and we see a glimpse of his Ripper persona. Then we end up in Denver, which probably has the best fighting in the game because there's not too many enclosed spaces, other than this weird blackout section. Also, it's hilarious how Raiden can't survive a fall from a building. Yes, that is. We also see how Blade Wolf is influenced to be a Sigma by Raiden too.
I understand your attempts at humor. I simply do not find them entertaining.
It's the motherfucking Eagle Double G. Snoop Dogg!
Anyways, then we get into this section which surprisingly addresses ludonarrative dissonance quite well. We've seen Raiden feel no remorse for the tons of enemies he's killed. But now, Sam calls him out by showing him that the people he killed weren't so evil after all. Of course, Sam isn't doing this because he cares about the cyborgs, he just wants to call out Raiden for his hypocrisy. We then meet Monsoon, whom I only know and will remember for
Memes. The DNA of the soul.
So then, after some taunting from Monsoon about memes, Raiden realizes he never really had a good justification for killing all those people, and comes to grips with the reality that he did it cause
I liked it. I was good at it.
Then we see Raiden.
Doctor, turn off my inhibitors.
What? This is madness. You
Do it!
All right.
Hey.
This is why I fight. I think it's time for Jack to let her rip.
And we get into the Monsoon fight. This fight is again decent. He's definitely in the top 2 most complex bosses in the game with how many phases he has. In his first phase, one problem I have is that his miss just kinda drags on for too long. I wish they would have half the time you're in it, but instead it also doubles the damage he did. Anyways, then we get to this pretty cool phase where you have to slash objects before they reach you, and if you do, you can get items. Then we get into the phase where Monsoon is
Fucking invincible!
I think it's quite cool, but it can get tiring just waiting for Monsoon to actually attack you, because otherwise you can't do anything, and it's not too clear that you need to parry him. Also, these moves have zero
purpose.
Then the vocals come in, and I guess now I should say that his theme absolutely slaps. Then at the end, we just kick him to death. I guess here I can talk about Ripper mode. It's pretty cool. I like you can't really activate it whenever you want because you might accidentally waste it, and it's not like you can reactivate it right after, since the FC has to be completely full. After that, we enter the central building and get to the most frustrating part of the game for me when it shouldn't have been. You see, I tried to finish the section without doing stealth, activating Ripper mode, or using a sub-weapon, and this was the result. At the very least though, I became a master at ripping the spine of this poor dude. I show this not only so you can laugh at my stubbornness, but also show a big problem with this game is that its combat doesn't really work that well in enclosed spaces because the RPG guys suddenly become twice as hard to avoid, and the problem I keep refusing to name becomes much worse in tight corridors. Skipping ahead a bit, we go through this fairly nice chase sequence and later this somewhat frustrating tripod section. And after that we get to a tedious section where you have to fight again both Mistral and Monsoon. Mistral's fight can be quite annoying because he is blocking so much of the time. But both their fights were also annoying because I was doing very little damage, which I guess leads to a small issue in this game I have that is somewhat my fault. See, I was so focused on getting this Fox Blade that I didn't get any weapon enhancements to increase my damage. This matters because they made the Fox Blade cost an enormous amount of money, which is weird because Sam's Blade only costs 1/10 of that amount. However, this kind of leads into another point I have. The ranking system encourages you not to fool around, which in a crazy action game like this is a bad thing. This is because it encourages you to be as efficient as possible, but that means anyone who wants to fool around, say trying to get the perfect parry each time, they're going to end up with a low rank. This rank matters because depending on your rank, you're given more or less BP, which is needed to upgrade your gear, so the game directly hurts you for trying to have fun. Anyways, then we meet Sundowner, who's about some incredibly base stuff about how he loves war and abusing children. Love touching little boys! Then we get into the best boss fight in the game. This boss fight is great because it is complex yet never too frustrating, despite the fact that I spent a lot of time getting used to using blade mode efficiently. Also, the idea of Sundowner being with his explosive shields is awesome. The fight's also great because parrying actually does something to him. It's also nice that there's a special event where he can rush you with a shield out in front of him, letting you break them more easily. There is a problem though. Depending on how you parried him, it may be hard to use blade mode on his shields from your position relative to his. As you can see from this clip, it's kinda hella awkward. After those shields are broken, he'll enter into a mode utilizing those systems he shows off so much, along with having a cool mask. This mode isn't particularly special, but it is a nice break from the shield section. He will then proceed to yeet a pole at you, and then hilariously play dead only to surprise you and almost take you out. Then you hijack and ride a bird to yeet it at the heli, which somehow causes Sundowner to fly exactly towards you, and then you kill him. Then the game almost immediately throws another boss fight at you, it being of course Jetstream Sam. Of course the music here might just be the best boss theme in the game, and even the instrumental is amazing and gives off a more majestic vibe. As for the boss fight itself, he has 3 phases, when he has a sword, when he loses it, and when he retrieves the sword. I do have 2 complaints with this fight though. The first is that in the swordless phase, he kinda repeats the same moves over and over, the rush and the kick. Another problem is that compared to the other bosses, he's kind of a pushover. You can easily lock onto him and you only then need a decent reaction time to block all his moves. However, he does have some funny taunts like this one. So here I was planning to put him saying pretty boy, but the thing is I forgot to record it, so unfortunately you will not be able to see it. He also has a funny scream too. The best part of this fight is it having no gimmicks or reinforcements. It's just 2 dudes battling it to the death, and indeed, the death has come like a flood of rain. As he's dying, Sam just kinda gives a smile, and then it's revealed that this man was essentially only as powerful as a human. Anyways, then we get this very funny cutscene which I assume was made specifically to mock me and only me.
So kawaii.
And then we see Raiden's daughter Thingy meet Wolfie. And then we fly off to my birth country, Pakistan. Here we get yet another boss battle, this time with Armstrong in his Metal Gear. This fight is probably the worst in the game, but of course it's still good. I really like the song in this fight, as it's representing everything Armstrong hates about America.
A few moments later.
Where every man is free to think, to act for himself!
What I didn't really like about the boss fight was how attacks would repeat over and over. Also, because of the issue I can't name just yet, it was hard to tell when exactly to block. I did like how you can ninja run through the two blades and how the blades' attacks could wipe out any remaining robot cows. Also, the ending sequence is pretty damn epic, with the player using blade mode with one of the robot's legs. Anyways, then we get to Armstrong beating the hell out of us himself, even punching us in the most epic fashion. Also, for a dude who just came in during the very ending portion of the game, Raiden's got some of the funniest lines.
Played college ball, you know.
That's some cushy Ivy League school.
Try University of Texas.
You also see him say something very similar to one of our most recent presidents.
They'll make America great again!
Then we get to the scene which was actually my first exposure to the game, and also the funniest scene in the entire game. Especially poor Armstrong's face when he's betrayed.
Psych! You're batshit insane!
She also got them cheeks though. Then we get to the funny haha meme, and then we get to the reverse of the funny haha meme. Then Blade Wolf says, and now the final fight begins. First, let me start with addressing that one problem I've always avoided talking about. That problem is the camera. The way the camera moves is never consistent. Sometimes as you parry it, it'll just spin the camera so that you miss the parry and get hit, and also sometimes it will target an enemy you didn't want to hit. The lock-on makes it worse because you lose your depth perception with how there's no vertical view. However, these problems are only really huge in close spaces where you can get backed into a corner easily, and that's why I bring it up in this fight. You see, unlike the other boss fights, Armstrong has this really dumb move that forces you into a corner, and then it becomes hard to fight back because your camera's going crazy. That magma move is also very inconsistent to avoid with defensive offense, and also, after the move, if Armstrong uses the yellow grab thingy, you're probably going to get hit. Another big problem is that in the blade mode section, you have very little time to slice the rocks, and as I've said before, it's hard to control the blade on PC, meaning I got hit a lot, which is bad because it one-shots you. However, here's the big plot twist. During the second time I fought him, which I can't record because for some reason you can't replay specific bosses that can only replay chapters, none of these problems really applied. Anyways, now we can get into the positives, which are many. The first is that unlike some other bosses, Armstrong has a wide variety of moves he can do, and I mean huge! While some of the moves can feel kinda weird to dodge with the camera, like this one and especially this one, none of them are too bad. Another really awesome thing is that Armstrong has at least 2 different QTEs he can trigger, which are both dodgeable, but if you do decide to trigger them, then you can knock off a lot of his health in return for losing your sword. Of course, I must mention the amazing soundtrack that plays. Also, the healing mechanic was quite cool, despite the fact that I was very confused by it at first. Also, after I mastered Blade Mode, even that Blade Mode section became super fun to do. Then Raiden Sandatsu's Armstrong's heart rather than his spine, and in the epilogue we see George flirting with Raiden's daughter, while Blade Wolf becomes their pet, which is hilarious. Then we cue to the credits, although in the epilogue we see Raiden has been influenced by Armstrong.
Fight reasons they don't understand. Causes they don't believe in.
So overall, the story is decent, but it's nothing amazing. It seems the story is basically about some because they have no other choice, some because it gives them a purpose, some because they believe if you're not strong you'll die, some just because it's fun, some in order to destroy America, some to protect the weak, and some because However, the thing is that some characters, particularly Mistral and Monsoon, only get about 5 minutes of screen time and the boss theme's lyrics to give them characterization. This means that while you will be able to understand the motivations by the end, it's likely you won't be remembering that character. The other 4 enemies, Blade Wolf, Sundowner, Sam, and Armstrong, do have a lot more time for you to actually grow attached to them, although it's still not too much. You'll probably like these characters a decent amount by the end, but it's not like any of them are revolutionary, or one you'll grow super attached to, with the exception of maybe Raiden if you played any of the previous Metal Gear games, unlike myself. Speaking of Raiden, while the story is about why people fight, it's also about Raiden's journey as he has to accept his true nature and purpose. At first, he views himself as justified in his killings and believes he is protecting the weak. However, then he realizes that those he kills aren't terrible people, and that while he wants to believe he's doing it for good reasons, the truth is that it's in his nature to kill. There's also a thing where Raiden realizes Armstrong is right, but it's not clear how he's going to carry out that plan. I mean, how will someone like Raiden of all people become president? And also, what parts of Armstrong's plan does he want to carry out? Because he's obviously not going to be going along with that child soldier stuff. These important unanswered questions aside though, I think Raiden's journey to coming to grips with his nature and finding new ideals is well done, although I'd probably care more if I actually played the previous Metal Gear games, and also if Raiden didn't have some really corny lines. So in conclusion, I'd say this game is a solid 8 out of 10 game. It could have been higher with more screen time for characters, a better camera, and no stun mechanic. Anyways, that's the end of my review. I know that definitely this video is pretty low quality compared to many other videos, especially with the audio, unsynchronized timings, low quality images, and minimal editing, but hopefully you're able to at least enjoy it. As a reward for getting through the video, if you comment, "Kids are cruel, Jack, and I love manners," then you'll get a pin if you're the first one. Oh, and for my next big review video, it'll be over another game I bought with Metal Gear Rising, Alien Isolation.
Wanna join my free gift card giveaway?
Anyways, that's it. See ya. Wait, hold on guys. Sam wants...
Hamburger.